Hi everyone, I just want to take this opportunity to outline the content of the GCSE music course. So although we talk about it a lot in class, if anyone forgets or wants to check again with some sort of overview of the course, you can have a little listen and a watch of this. Thing just to bear in mind is that Edexcel is our exam board, and that GCSE music is assessed in total out of 200 marks, and just bear that in mind as we're going through the slides. So first of all, we'll deal with performance, and that's worth 30% of the grade. And here we have a solo and an ensemble performance. So all our recordings, the solo recording, the ensemble recording, have to be completed in year 11. So it means that during year 10, all our performances we're doing are practice performances, working up towards the year 11 one. Our solo recording must be a minimum of one length in time. And our ensemble recording must again be minimum of one length in time. However, you've got to make sure that the combined length of both is at least 4 minutes, and there are mark penalties if you are short of time. Most people tend to record a solo that's slightly longer than the ensemble, just because it's slightly easier to be responsible for just your solo piece rather than the ensemble piece, and they'll then maybe do something for 2-3 minutes for that, and then make up the rest of the time with their ensemble. I should just explain at this point what the word ensemble means. That's effectively you playing in a group. The group could be literally a duet with you and your teacher, or it could be a large group than that. Other rules about it say that you cannot be playing the same part as another musician in your group, and that your ensemble cannot simply be you performing on your instrument or singing accompanied by a piano, because essentially that's the same as the solo. The only exception to that is if you are a pianist, you can play a piano duet with another pianist. Staff are allowed to be involved in the solo recording, so I can play piano parts for people, and then, as I said before, you could also do an ensemble with your teacher, do a flute duet, singing duet with another student accompanied by me on the piano. The combinations are sort of endless, really. It's also perfectly possible for both solos and ensembles to use professional backing tracks. Thinking here about people who are using like sort of a rock backings, drummers, guitarists, bass players. That's something that's commonplace. Next thing is that solos must be selected from a grade exam syllabus or from Edexcel's difficulty booklet. They call it a booklet, but in reality it's got thousands of pieces of music of which they've graded the standard. And I've not found a student yet who has not been able to find at least 2 or 3 pieces that they would like to do that are of the sufficient standard. The reality is that there's so much choice, you're always going to find something on there that you want to sing or play. What happens is that I mark each recording initially out of 24 marks, but then that mark can go up to a maximum of 30, and that's to do with how difficult the music is. In an ideal world, by the time we get to year 11, we'll be all playing grade 5 difficulty standard music. If you can't get to that standard, that's okay, it's absolutely fine, but the nearer we can get to grade 5 or above even, then the better. Just to clarify what I mean by that, it means that the pieces that you're playing are judged to be of grade 5 standard. It does not mean you have to have passed a grade 5 ABRSM or Trinity Rock exam, just so you're clear about that. Anyway, the solo's marked eventually out of 30, the ensemble out of 30, giving you a final total of 60 marks of your 200 that I mentioned before for performance. So 60 of the 200 marks is for performance work. Moving on then to composition. So composition, again, it's worth 30% of the grade, and here again we have to submit 2 pieces of work. One is a free composition, minimum length of a minute, and you can write in any style, and you can hand in a piece of work from any point in the course. It doesn't have to be done in year 11. Then at the start of year 11, Edexcel release 4 set briefs. So these are 4 set tasks roughly based on the areas of study from our listening exam, and you have to choose one of them, and again you've got to write a piece in minimum length of 1 minute. They're very broad, the briefs, so there's plenty of scope for you to sort of shape a piece in more or less whatever way you want to, but we have to make sure that we comply to one of these 4 broad topics. So it's a minute per piece in theory, but however, again, like the performance, there's a combined minimum length, and that's at least 3 minutes for composing. And again, there are penalties if you're under time. The reality is that students shouldn't be handing in under time work. Basically, it's my job to make sure that that doesn't happen. For each piece, we've got to hand in a recording and a score. So by recording, that could simply be generated from Sibelius file, and the score could be printed from Sibelius. There are other ways of doing the recordings. Sometimes people can record them live, and that's fine. If you've written something that we can perform live, then let's record it live. That sounds lovely. And then it's possible also to produce lead sheets or sort of commentaries instead of a score, but these are quite tricky to do. Each composition is marked out of 30, with again 60 being the maximum mark. So that's another 60 marks for your composition, being your sort of chunk out of 200. So performing 60, composing 60, so that's a combined total of 120 marks. One last thing about composition: the rules do state that all composition work should be completed in class. Or certainly in front of me as the teacher. That's not to say that compositions can't be worked on at home, and you can take ideas home and work them up and bring them into school, but really the sort of final, what they call final write-up, has to be done in front of me in lessons. So a couple of final points here. All work, composition and performance, is assessed by me, and a sample is sent to Excel for moderation, just to check that I've not been too generous or too harsh. It's very, very rare that there's any movement of marks at all, and if it is, it's only very minimal, so nothing really to worry about. I just got to mark accurately to the mark scheme, and all will be well. So all performance composition work needs to be completed by the Easter holiday of year 11, but actually it's in students' best interest to get it done much sooner than that. Then it means that we've got it out of the way and we can concentrate on listening and exam work. So what I normally do is do a solo recording in November of year 11, and then have a deadline of Christmas of year 11 for handing in the first composition. And then we'd normally look to record the ensemble performance in February of year 11, and then to hand in the second composition by the February half term. What happens then is that I mark all the work, and if it's not quite to the standard that students would like or had expected, they can then have another go. And you know, there's plenty of chance for sort of polishing up work, and students will be given as many opportunities as they can fit into their time to try and get work to the best possible standard. So finally, we move on to the listening exam, which is in the summer of year 11, usually after the summer half-term holiday, and this is all based on or around 8 set works. And these set works cover a wide variety of different musical periods and styles, and the study of the 8 set works and other related pieces of music is worth 40% of the course, and so it's marked out of 80. And if you remember back to GCSE music being out of 200, with performance for 60, composition for 60, and then this is the other 80 marks. So the exam starts with 6 short listening questions, which are usually worth 50 to 55 of the 80 marks. So this is the most substantial part of the paper. And these are all based on 6 of the 8 set works that we've studied. So we'll know these pieces of music inside out and backwards. We started the study of the set works at the moment, and we keep chipping away at those during the course. There's then one dictation question, which is where students have to, by ear, notate some rhythm and melody from a piece of music. There's then one unfamiliar listening question. What this involves is listening to a piece of music that is similar to a set work, but not exactly the set work piece, and answering some short questions. And then there's one essay in which they compare a set work piece with an unfamiliar piece. And the whole exam takes 1 hour and 45 minutes in total, and most of the time students are listening to music that's been played to them, and they're answering short answer listening questions. It's only the essay at the end that requires some extended writing. So that's the makeup of the exam. We keep practicing questions throughout the year, little mini tests, and then obviously there'll be a year 10 exam, and then a year 11 mock exam as well. So by the time we get to the real exam, students should be very familiar with the makeup of the exam. So finally, let's just have a quick word about grade boundaries. So I started out saying, if you can remember that GCSE music's out of 200, this is where that sort of comes into play in terms of a GCSE level 9 to 1. So you can see here for the grade boundaries for the 2 years in which we got them published using the current syllabus, 2018-2019, they're pretty similar. The average mark at Ryedale School for performance and composition is 108 out of 120. So that's obviously a great starting point for students. If they can have scored something around that sort of level by the time they take the exam, that then means that they don't need a terribly high exam mark to achieve a good level. Obviously, the better they do on all of it, the higher they can get. And when I'm awarding grades and putting grades on Attitude to Learning, I'm using this as my sort of guide to know what grade a student might get. Now I'm thinking about their combined performance, composition and listening work. It's not really practical to give individual grades for parts of the course. You've got to see the whole thing as a sort of like collective. How many marks out of 200 am I going to get for my performance, composition and listening? I can't really say, 57 out of 60 in performance is a level 9. It doesn't break down like that. Anyway, I hope that you found that useful, and it gives you as students an idea of what you're aiming for, and also parents, you've got some sort of idea about what your young person is doing in music. Any questions, as always, please do get in touch. Thank you ever so much.